Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pat O'Brien. I'm the Campus Director of Operations Education at the Bridgeport location. I've been contacted by the Communications Committee and asked to provide some historical perspective on Porter and Chester Institute as we celebrate our 75th year. The first thing that struck me about that was that the 75th anniversary, I realized that I had actually been employed here for more than half of that time. I was here for the 40th anniversary. The 50th anniversary celebration was kind of a big deal. Now we're doing the 75th anniversary. And the only thing I can promise you is that for the 100th anniversary, you people are on your own. When I started with Porter and Chester Institute back in 1983, just to give you a little background, I had come from a company where I was an applications engineer. I designed backup power systems. We did jobs for large facilities. We did jobs for submarines at Electric Boat, jobs for the Alaskan Pipeline. And between the engineering department and research and development at that company, it was kind of stressful. Well, eventually they relocated up to Maine, and I decided to stay here in Connecticut. And I felt that Porter and Chester Institute had a career electronics program, and they may enjoy relaying some of that job experience and knowledge onto folks that had a similar passion for electronics and ultimately for computers. The beginning, 1983, I apologize to those of you that weren't alive then or may not remember the 80s, but it was kind of a fledgling time for the computer industry. The program that we had at Porter and Chester at that time was half electronics. It was a quarter microprocessors and 1/4 computers. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of folks didn't have a computer in their home. If they did, it was a Commodore 64 or an Atari XL 800. And when you look at what's available today compared to back then, there was no internet back then. There was no World Wide Web. If you had a large, powerful computer, you were able to dial up someone else who had a computer, put your phone in the 2 suction cups and communicate and download files at about 300 bits per second. So it was a brand new career. The computer industry was just beginning, and the interest in getting into computers was just totally off the chart. When I started between 1983 and 1985, just in the electronics computer program, we were running 3 day classes, 3 afternoon classes, and 3 evening classes with an average class size of about 30. So we were between 270 and 300 students just in that one program at that one campus. Porter and Chester Institute, back during those days, they basically had 3 programs. When I began, they had automotive technology, they had drafting and CAD. And again, the CAD computers consisted of a monochrome monitor with a wired touch pen that they were able to draw images onto the screen. We also had, of course, the electronics and computers. Shortly after that, we added an office technology program at our Waterbury location. I actually began in Stratford and transferred up to Waterbury. The first Waterbury location They started with one program, which was their draft in CAD, and it was actually in a rented space in the downtown ramp garage. And then they moved into a larger location and brought the other three programs along with it. Some things that, you know, I find interesting. When I started, the total program cost was $3,900. That was for a one-year program. And about 6 months after I began, they raised the tuition, the program cost to $4,200. And, you know, we were like, nobody's ever going to pay that much to come to school for just a year. But they did it, and it worked out for them. As the computer industry evolved, and you know, more and more folks entered that market, Porter and Chester evolved at the same time. We began to add programs. We actually moved the Waterbury campus to Watertown in 1987. We moved into Watertown again, just with our basic 4 programs. And we started quite a few programs actually out of the Watertown campus. Medical assisting, 1993. We created and started the electrical program in 2003, the practical nursing program. We added other programs, dental assisting, low voltage, electronic systems technician, and most recently, we have added the plumbing program, so that kind of rounds out our offerings, you know, as far as the campus where we are in Connecticut. In 1987, when we moved into Watertown, for those of you that have never been to where the Watertown campus was, it was a little brick building. It sat down in a hole. It was about half a mile from the highway exit. There were no drive-by traffic. And essentially, if you didn't know it was there, you would drive by it and not even see it. From where we started in Watertown, we expanded to fill the entire building. We expanded into a second building on the same property and into a third building across the street. And from those modest beginnings, we actually reached a point at the Watertown campus. We were over 500 students just in those 7 programs. That was due in no small part to someone that y'all might be familiar with as well, Jack Burke. Jack Burke joined Porter and Chester as a career program specialist. I think it was right around 1990, somewhere in that neighborhood. And, you know, I can tell you that Jack had and still has perhaps the best work ethic of anyone that I've worked with. Jack was there on weekends. Jack was there countless hours every day. You know, day after Thanksgiving, well, Jack would be there. So Jack had a huge part to play in expanding the enrollment of the campus. He did take over the campus as an executive director right around 1993, and that's when we began working on adding additional programs, the first one being medical assisting. The culture of Porter and Chester Institute basically has remained unchanged. In the beginning, it was privately owned, gentleman Will Brown, and he had a board of directors. All of the members of the board actually bought into the company, so they had a vested interest in seeing it succeed and seeing it grow. There was a large community involvement. We always were running car shows and battle of the bands and you name it, and we probably did it there. We were running fundraisers. We were out at the local football games, in the malls. So it was kind of a grassroots effort. Again, in the earlier years, marketing was a whole different animal. People still read the newspaper. So it was actually quite interesting how we were able to accomplish some of the things that we did based on that particular location. The other thing that the culture of Porter and Chester Institute, at least from where I came from in the Watertown campus, we had a site visit from ACSET, and during the site visit, one of the questions pertains to the average longevity of the staff. And at that time, for that visit, we actually had a 12 years was the average length of employment when you took the education and administrative staff together. They felt that that was just totally unheard of, and how can you have folks working that long in the same environment, the same job? Well, I can tell you that the staff we've had there, the staff that we have everywhere, they do it because they have a passion for what they do. And probably one of the best examples I can give you from the Watertown campus, we had a medical assisting student who was nearing the end of her program, and one of her last courses was pharmacology. She actually had an appendicitis and ended up in the hospital. Her father came to the campus and met with the medical staff, and he was just beside himself. He'd go visit his daughter, and she was so upset that she wasn't going to be able to graduate. And he was upset because the pharmacology course was essentially all math, and he didn't know how to help her. And he couldn't, he didn't understand the math that way and so forth. So what would happen is the medical instructor actually sat down, and the father came to the campus 2 or 3 times a week, and they taught him pharmacology, and they taught him the math so that he could go to the hospital and relay that information and help his daughter to understand it. So that's a prime example of the type of dedication that our staff has. They had it then, and they still have it today. What's changed with Porter and Chester Institute in the short time that I've been here? Well, probably the largest change has to do with regulatory oversight. Back in the 80s and the 90s, we would have a supervisors meeting, and someone from financial aid would come in and just pass around a sheet of paper, and that was our SAP report. And everybody would look at it and say, yeah, this one's doing good, this one's okay, they're all doing good. And we would just check them off, and they were okay to get funded. Now, it's a huge process to determine their SAP, their financial aid eligibility, and so forth. Back in the earlier days, transcripts were handwritten. We would just take these blank forms, write all the students' information, the course numbers, all of their grades. And I can actually remember in the Watertown campus where myself and a couple of the computer staff, we actually created an Excel transcript so that the staff could simply enter the information, would calculate their cumulative grade, and take care of things that way. But recently, the amount of oversight is just incredible. We have the accrediting commissions, we have the state, we have the nursing board, we have everybody wants to have a say in what we do and how we do it. And that brings me now to what hasn't changed. Well, what hasn't changed is two things. The students haven't changed. The students are still the same folks that were here 75 years ago or 50 years ago or last week. It doesn't matter. The students are folks that want to make a positive change. They want to better themselves. They want to create a better environment, a better life for their families. And they will continue to do that. I'll give you one more example. We had I think a dental assisting student at the Watertown campus. She would get up every morning and take a bus at 5:30 in the morning with her infant daughter down to the Green in Waterbury, change buses, get on a bus to her mother's house, drop her daughter off, go back to the Green, take a different bus up to Watertown in order to attend class. Where the buses dropped the students off was almost a half a mile from the campus. So rain, snow, it didn't matter. She got off the bus and she walked all the way to the campus. She would arrive covered in mud, covered in slush, soaking wet. But she did that every single day that she was supposed to. And when it came time for her to graduate, and our career services folks were setting up some places for her to interview, she had no new scrubs, no fancy interviewing outfits. So one of our career services people actually went out and bought her some fresh scrubs so that she would look presentable. They may have even driven her to an interview. I can't really recall, but that's the type of dedication that student had. And again, the dedication that the staff has. So as far as, things changing, everybody's talking about change. Well, the students haven't changed and the dedication of the staff haven't changed. So that's a little bit of my historical perspective. And I look forward to working with all of you for at least a bit longer. Okay, have a great day.